Dear you, you were never the perfect daughter-in-law in this family's eyes. Margaret Warwick sneered, her icy voice slicing through the opulent penthouse in Detroit's glittering core. Jada Ellis, a devoted wife who poured her heart into a marriage forged on sacrifice, stood frozen, her warm brown eyes brimming with shock. Her husband, Ethan, and his ex-girlfriend, Claire, stood united with Margaret, their betrayal a calculated blow to erase Jada from their elite circle. The sting of rejection seared, yet a spark of defiance glowed beneath. This heartbreak would kindle a fire that reshaped destinies. Cast aside, Jada vanished into the shadows, only to return, wielding a truth that toppled empires. Stay tuned for her stunning comeback. Hit subscribe, tap the bell, and share where you're watching from and what time it is. If her story captivates you, leave a rating from 1 to 10. Her journey will leave you speechless. The penthouse perched atop Detroit's skyline shimmered like a jewel, its glass walls framing a city ablaze with lights. Inside, the open kitchen glowed under warm pendant lamps, where Jada Ellis, 29, moved with quiet grace. Her rich brown skin caught the light, her long black hair tied in a low, elegant bun, and her warm brown eyes held a flicker of hope. She chopped rosemary with care, the scent of braised beef mingling with thyme, filling the air with a warmth that belied the chill in her marriage. Jada, once a budding social worker from Detroit's gritty east side, had poured her heart into this life, sacrificing dreams to bolster her husband Ethan's rise in real estate. Tonight, she hoped this dinner, his favorite, would bridge the growing distance between them. The table was set with care, crisp white linens, 2 crystal wine glasses, and a small bouquet of daisies from a street vendor, a nod to her roots. Jada hummed a melody her mother used to sing in their cramped East Side apartment, a tune of resilience that steadied her trembling heart. Ethan's late nights, curt texts, and distracted glances had carved cracks in their bond. Yet in this moment, stirring the pot, she clung to memories of their early days. Ethan's laughter under a starlit Detroit sky, calling her his anchor. The clatter of the front door jolted her from reverie. "Ethan, you're home!" she called, wiping her hands on her apron, a smile blooming across her face. But the smile withered as she stepped into the living room. Ethan Warwick, 34, stood in the doorway, his blonde hair impeccably styled, his green eyes cold as slate. His tailored gray suit clung to his tall frame like armor, but his posture was that of a man braced for battle. Behind him loomed Margaret Warwick, 60, his mother, her silver blonde hair swept into a regal updo, her icy blue eyes scanning the room with disdain. Her designer clutch gleamed, her red lips set in a severe line. And beside her, arm linked with Margaret's, was Claire Hensley, 31, Ethan's ex-girlfriend, a specter Jada had sensed but never faced. Claire's chestnut hair fell in polished waves, her hazel eyes glinting with smug triumph, her cream silk dress screaming old money. Jada's stomach twisted, her pulse hammering. "What's going on, Ethan?" Her voice came out softer than she intended, a habit born from years of dimming herself to fit their world. Ethan cleared his throat, his gaze fixed on the marble floor. "Jada, we need to talk." Margaret swept forward, her heels clicking like judgments on the polished tiles. "Dear you were never the perfect daughter-in-law in this family's eyes," she said, her voice a blade cloaked in honey. "You've tried, I'll grant you that. Your little dinners, your quaint ways. But Ethan deserves someone who belongs in our world, someone who elevates him." She gestured to Claire, who smiled with the confidence of a victor claiming her prize. "Claire is that woman. She always has been." The room spun, Jada's breath catching in her throat. She looked to Ethan, pleading silently for him to deny it, but he stood mute, his shoulders slumped, a coward in a tailored suit. Claire stepped closer, her hand resting possessively on Ethan's arm. "It's not personal, Jada," she said, her tone light as if discussing a trivial matter. "But Margaret's right. You don't fit here. Ethan and I have a history, a future. You're just not part of it." Jada's hands gripped the kitchen counter, her knuckles paling against her skin. "What are you saying?" she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. "This is my home." Margaret's laugh was a sharp, brittle thing. "Your home? Oh, Jada, how naive. This is the Warwick legacy, not a place for a girl from the East Side." The words cut deep, echoing Margaret's past barbs at Gallus. Her critiques of Jada's rustic dresses, her sidelong glances that branded Jada an outsider. Ethan finally spoke, his voice mechanical. Jada, you should stay with your mother for a while. Pack your things. It's over. The betrayal coiled around Jada's heart like smoke, thick and suffocating. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but her throat tightened, tears prickling her eyes. Instead, she turned, her steps heavy as she climbed the stairs to their bedroom. The penthouse's opulence, crystal chandeliers, sleek hardwood floors, mocked her now, a reminder of a life she'd never truly owned. She opened a drawer, pulling out clothes, her fingers brushing a folded paper tucked inside Ethan's jacket. Unfolding it, her breath hitched. A financial statement detailing the transfer of their penthouse and joint savings to Margaret's name. No signature of hers, no trace of her existence. The realization hit like a fist. They hadn't just discarded her, they'd erased her, plotting in secret while she slept beside Ethan. Shock gave way to a quiet fire, a rage she hadn't known she possessed. Jada stuffed the paper into her pocket, her hands trembling but purposeful. She packed a small suitcase, jeans, a few books, her mother's silver bracelet, a relic from the East Side that grounded her. No wedding photos, no mementos of a love now revealed as a lie. Descending the stairs, she faced them one last time. Margaret's lips curved in triumph, Claire's eyes gleamed with possession, and Ethan stared at the floor, spineless. Jada paused at the door, the city's lights spilling through the glass, casting her shadow long and unyielding. You think I'll fade away, she said, her voice low but steady, cutting through the silence. But you've awakened something you can't control. Without waiting for a reply, she stepped into the night, the door closing with a soft thud that echoed like a vow. Detroit's streets stretched before her, their lights a constellation of promise. Jada clutched her suitcase, the fire within her burning brighter, ready to reclaim what was hers. The streets of Detroit pulsed with life, their neon glow a stark contrast to the cold opulence Jada Ellis had left behind. She gripped the handle of her suitcase, her mother's silver bracelet glinting on her wrist, a tether to the East Side where she'd once found strength in struggle. The betrayal in the penthouse, Margaret's venomous words, Ethan's cowardly silence, Claire's smug triumph, clawed at her heart, each memory a fresh wound. Jada's warm brown eyes stung with unshed tears as she navigated the familiar grit of her old neighborhood, the air thick with the scent of street food and distant music. Her mother's house was too far, too heavy with questions she couldn't face. Instead, she headed to Lila Brooks' apartment, a modest brick row house tucked between community gardens and chain-link fences, a sanctuary where Jada could breathe again. The engine of her taxi ticked down like a fading heartbeat as she pulled up to Lila's door. The weight of the financial statement, tucked in her pocket, pressed against her like a secret too heavy to bear. It detailed the theft of her home, her savings, her life, transferred to Margaret's name without her consent. Jada's chest tightened, a storm of shock and rage swirling within. How had she been so blind? She knocked softly, her hand trembling. The door swung open, revealing Lila, her curly red hair tied back in a colorful scarf, her green eyes widening with concern. Jada, girl, what's wrong? Lila's voice, warm and fierce, was a lifeline. Jada stepped inside and collapsed into her friend's arms, the scent of lavender candles and fresh coffee wrapping around her like a hug. They threw me out, Lila, Jada whispered, her voice cracking as she sank onto the worn couch, its mismatched pillows a stark contrast to the penthouse's sterile luxury. Ethan, Margaret, and Claire. They planned it all. They said I don't belong, that Claire's the one they always wanted. Her words spilled out, raw and jagged, as she recounted the confrontation. Margaret's icy decree that Jada was never enough. Ethan's refusal to meet her gaze. Claire's possessive grip on his arm. Lila's face hardened, her full lips pressing into a thin line as she poured 2 mugs of chamomile tea, the steam rising like unspoken fury. That witch Margaret always had it in for you, Lila said, handing Jada a mug. Remember her at your wedding? smiling like a viper while whispering about your roots. And Ethan, spineless, tied to her purse strings. Jada sipped the tea, its warmth seeping into her chilled bones. The memories flooded back, unbidden but relentless. Margaret's subtle barbs had started early, her critique of Jada's sundress at their first family dinner, calling it charmingly simple with a smirk. The galas where Jada stood silent beside Ethan, enduring Margaret's introductions of her as Ethan's Little East Side wife, the words dripping with condescension, and Claire, always lurking in stories Ethan brushed off, her reappearance was no accident. I gave up everything, Jada murmured, her voice thick with grief. My social work dreams, my independence, all to fit into their world. And they erased me. Lila leaned forward, her green eyes blazing. They didn't erase you, Jada. They tried, but you're still here. And you're not going down without a fight. She gestured to the suitcase. What else do you have in there? Anything we can use? Jada's hand drifted to her pocket, pulling out the crumpled financial statement. This, she said, her voice steadier now. It shows they transferred everything, our penthouse, our savings, to Margaret's name. No signature from me. They planned it all along. Lila scanned the paper, her expression shifting from shock to outrage. This is fraud, straight up. Ethan and his mama thought they could bury you, but this is your weapon. The word weapon struck a chord, stirring the fire Jada had felt igniting as she left the penthouse. For years she'd shrunk herself, believing love meant sacrifice. But here in Lila's cozy apartment, surrounded by framed photos of community rallies and shelves of well-loved books, the truth crystallized. She wasn't invisible. She was Jada Ellis, the girl who'd organized youth programs in high school, who dreamed of lifting others up. The humiliation burned, but so did a budding resolve. I don't know where to start, Jada admitted, her brown eyes meeting Lila's. But I want to fight. Lila grinned, fierce and proud. Good. I know someone who can help. Victor Lang is a lawyer downtown. He takes cases like this. Folks screwed over by the system. I'll call him tomorrow. He'll see the fire in you. Jada nodded, the weight of the night settling into something new. Not defeat, but purpose. Lila set up a spare room, its quilt a patchwork of memories from her own family. As Jada unpacked, she pulled out another find from the penthouse, an email printout from Ethan's jacket, detailing secret meetings with Margaret about the asset transfer. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just betrayal, it was theft, calculated and cruel. Sleep eluded Jada that night, her mind a whirlwind of pain and possibility. The East Side's distant hum, kids laughing, cars rumbling, lulled her like a promise. She clutched her mother's bracelet, its cool silver grounding her. The fire within her grew, no longer a flicker, but a steady flame. She was no longer the overlooked wife. She was awakening, ready to reclaim her voice, her rights, her life. The downtown Detroit law office hummed with the quiet intensity of battles fought on paper and precedent, a world far removed from the glittering penthouse Jada Ellis had fled. She sat at a cluttered desk in Victor Lang's firm, sorting mail under the flicker of fluorescent lights, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and old files. Her warm brown eyes, once clouded with betrayal, now burned with a quiet resolve. The financial statement in email she'd found, proof of Ethan and Margaret's calculated theft, lay tucked in a folder beside her, a constant reminder of the life stolen from her. Each envelope she opened felt like a step toward reclaiming her voice, but the weight of the past pressed heavily on her heart. Margaret's sneering words, Ethan's averted gaze, and Claire's smug triumph replayed in her mind, each memory a sharp pang of humiliation. Jada's fingers trembled as she recalled the galas where Margaret had diminished her, calling her Ethan's East Side charity case, with a smile that cut deeper than any insult. Those moments had chipped away at her, making her feel like an imposter in a world of wealth. Yet here in the chaos of Victor's office, surrounded by stacks of legal briefs and the faint hum of a copier, she felt a spark of belonging. Victor Lang, the lawyer Lila had connected her with, had seen something in her, a fighter, not a victim. Knowledge is power, he'd said, his gray eyes sharp with conviction. Learn the system, and you'll tear theirs apart. His words had ignited a fire in Jada, one that burned hotter with each passing hour. Her first task was mundane, sorting mail, answering phones. But it grounded her, giving her purpose amid the wreckage of her marriage. Victor, with his rumpled suit and salt and pepper hair, moved through the office like a general, his voice carrying the weight of countless victories. He'd agreed to take her case pro bono, recognizing the fraud in the financial statement as a clear violation of marital law. "This is theft, Jada," he'd said, steepling his fingers over the document. "In Michigan, assets like that penthouse can't be transferred without your consent. We'll build a case, but it'll take time." Jada nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of dread and hope. Time meant patience, a quiet fight she was only beginning to understand. Victor introduced her to Nora Tate, a private investigator whose sharp blue eyes and short blonde hair gave her the look of someone who missed nothing. Nora's trench coat was slung over a chair as she pored over financial records on her laptop, her fingers tapping with relentless precision. "The Warwicks are old money," Nora said, her voice gruff but kind. "They hide their dirt deep, but I've got a shovel." Jada trusted her instantly, sensing a kindred spirit who thrived in the shadows. Nora's first task was to dig into the Warwick Legacy Fund, Margaret's supposed charity, which Jada suspected was a front. The email Jada had found hinted at secret transfers, and Nora's early findings confirmed it. Large sums from Ethan's real estate deals funneled into the fund, with Claire's family listed as silent investors. As Jada filed documents, her mind churned with memories of Margaret's prejudice. At a charity auction, Margaret had once pulled her aside, her voice dripping with condescension. "You're a sweet girl, Jada, but you'll never belong in our circles. It's not your fault. It's your background." The words had stung, but Jada had smiled through them, desperate to please. Now those slights fueled her. She scribbled notes during breaks, learning legal terms, marital property, equitable distribution, fraud, each word a brick in her growing armor. The humiliation of being cast aside by Ethan, of Claire's possessive smirk, transformed into a quiet fury that steadied her hand. Nora's updates came in hushed conversations over coffee in the office break room, where the scent of burnt grounds mingled with determination. "Look at this," Nora said one afternoon, sliding her laptop toward Jada. A spreadsheet detailed transfers from Ethan's firm to the Warwick Legacy Fund, labeled as consulting fees but lacking receipts. "This isn't charity, it's a laundering scheme, and Claire's family is in deep profiting off the side." Jada's pulse quickened, the betrayal unfolding like a dark tapestry. She remembered Claire's reappearance at a family dinner, her polished charm a stark contrast to Jada's quiet sincerity. Margaret had fawned over her, calling her the daughter we should have had. The memory burned, but it also clarified Jada's purpose. Victor joined them, his gaze approving as Jada asked about hidden assets. "Smart," he said. "Families like the Warwicks bury wealth in trusts and shell companies. We'll need more. Bank records, emails, anything to prove intent." Jada's resolve hardened. She wasn't just fighting for her home, she was fighting for the truth. The office became her refuge, its cluttered shelves and faded carpets, a stark contrast to the penthouse's sterile grandeur. Each day she felt less like the overlooked wife and more like the woman she'd been on the East Side. Resilient, resourceful, unbroken. As the workday ended, Jada lingered, her fingers tracing the financial statement. The pain of Ethan's betrayal, Margaret's disdain, and Claire's intrusion still lingered, but they no longer defined her. In their place grew a quiet power, forged in the crucible of loss. She wasn't ready to confront them yet. Her fight required patience, a slow gathering of strength. But with Victor's guidance and Nora's tenacity, Jada knew she was no longer alone. The East Side's distant hum echoed through the office window, a reminder of who she was. She was Jada Ellis, and she would rise. The East Side of Detroit thrummed with life, its streets alive with the chatter of kids and the scent of blooming community gardens. Jada Ellis stood in the heart of it, her warm brown eyes tracing the mural of a rising phoenix on a brick wall, its fiery wings a mirror to the spark within her. 2 years had passed since she'd fled the penthouse. Margaret's venomous words, "You were never the perfect daughter-in-law," still echoing in her ears like a bitter refrain. The betrayal by Ethan, her husband, and Claire, his ex-girlfriend, had left scars, but Jada refused to let them define her. Her mother's silver bracelet, cool against her wrist, anchored her to the resilience of her roots. Each day she rebuilt herself, brick by brick, in the shadow of a city that knew both struggle and strength. Lila Brooks's nonprofit office, a cramped space filled with flyers and hope, became Jada's refuge. She volunteered there, organizing food drives and youth workshops, her hands moving with purpose as she rekindled the social worker spirit she'd buried for Ethan. The work was grueling, long hours, tearful stories from families, but it grounded her, each smile from a child a balm to her wounds. Yet the pain lingered. Nights alone in her small apartment, a far cry from the penthouse's sterile grandeur, brought flashbacks of Margaret's disdain. At a gala, Margaret had once critiqued Jada's dress, whispering, "So urban, dear. Try something less provincial." Jada had laughed it off then, desperate to belong, but now the memory fueled her. She wasn't that woman anymore, shrinking to fit their mold. By day, Jada threw herself into learning, enrolling in a paralegal certification course at a community college. The classroom, with its scuffed desks and flickering projector, felt like home in a way the Warwick's world never had. She scribbled notes on marital law, her mind racing with terms, equitable distribution, spousal misconduct, that armed her for the fight ahead. The financial statement and email from Ethan's jacket, proof of his and Margaret's fraud, sat in a locked drawer, a silent promise of justice. Jada's heart still ached for the life she'd lost, for the love she'd believed in. She remembered signing the penthouse deed with Ethan, his arm around her, whispering, "Our forever." Now it was a fortress barring her entry, likely redecorated by Claire's smug hands. Lila was her anchor, her fiery red curls bouncing as she rallied Jada over coffee at a local diner, its neon sign buzzing outside. "You're not just surviving, Jada. You're thriving," Lila said, her green eyes fierce with pride. "They tried to break you, but you're building something better." Jada smiled, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "I still feel their shadows," she admitted, her voice soft but steady. Margaret's words, Ethan's silence. It's like they're still laughing. Lila leaned forward, her voice a whip crack. "Let them laugh. You're the one who'll have the last word." Nora Tate, the private investigator, kept the fire burning. Her updates came in quiet meetings at the law office, where Jada now worked part-time, filing papers and shadowing Victor Lang. Nora's sharp blue eyes glinted as she slid a folder across the table one evening, the scent of printer ink heavy in the air. "Got something," she said, her voice low. "Claire's family isn't just investing in the Warwick Legacy Fund. They're tied to a shady real estate deal Ethan's firm brokered. Inflated property values, hidden loans, the works." Jada's pulse quickened, her brown eyes scanning the documents. The deal linked Claire's father to a shell company, with Ethan's signatures all over falsified contracts. "They thought I'd disappear," Jada murmured, her voice edged with steel. "But I'm seeing everything now." The discovery sharpened her focus, each piece of evidence a brick in her growing fortress. Jada's nights were spent studying, her apartment lit by a single lamp as she pored over legal texts. Flashbacks intruded, Ethan's cold dismissal, Claire's possessive smirk at a family dinner, Margaret's voice calling her unsuitable, but they no longer crippled her. Instead, they fueled her, each memory a reminder of why she fought. She began to stand taller, her simple blouses and jeans carrying an air of quiet authority. The East Side, with its cracked sidewalks and vibrant murals, mirrored her transformation, scarred but unbroken, ready to rise. Lila's nonprofit hosted a community event one evening, and Jada spoke to a crowd of locals, her voice steady as she shared resources for families in need. The applause warmed her, a stark contrast to the cold applause of Warwick Gallas. "You're a natural," Lila said afterward, pulling her into a hug. Jada's heart swelled, the pain of betrayal softening into purpose. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. The families she helped, their struggles echoing her own, gave her a reason to keep going. As she locked her apartment door one night, Jada paused, her fingers brushing the financial statement in her drawer. The betrayal had shattered her, but it had also forged her. 2 years had transformed her from the overlooked wife into a woman of strength, armed with knowledge and allies. Victor's lessons, Nora's evidence, and Lila's fierce support were her foundation. The Warwicks had underestimated her, but Jada Ellis was no longer invisible. She was a storm brewing in silence, her roots in Detroit's East Side giving her the strength to rise. The Detroit Art Museum glowed like a beacon, its marble facade awash in golden light as luxury cars lined the valet stand. Inside, the grand ballroom pulsed with the chatter of the city's elite, their laughter mingling with the clink of crystal flutes under cascading chandeliers. Jada Ellis stood at the edge of the crowd, her warm brown eyes sharp with purpose, her long black hair tied in a low, elegant bun. The sleek black dress hugged her rich brown skin, its simplicity a stark contrast to the opulence around her. Her mother's silver bracelet gleamed on her wrist, a quiet reminder of the East Side strength that had carried her through 2 years of transformation. The folder in her hands, thick with evidence of Ethan and Margaret's fraud, felt like a sword, honed by months of quiet preparation. Jada's heart thundered, a mix of nerves and resolve. The betrayal that had driven her from the penthouse, Margaret's sneering declaration, Ethan's cowardice, Claire's smug intrusion, still burned. But it no longer broke her. She'd spent 2 years rebuilding, learning the law, unearthing truths with Nora Tate's help. Tonight at Ethan and Claire's engagement gala, she would reclaim her voice. Nora had secured her an invitation through a discreet contact, a forged pass that let Jada slip into the crowd unnoticed. The air was thick with perfume and ambition, Detroit's politicians and financiers orbiting the Warwick name like moths to a flame. At the center of the ballroom, Ethan and Claire held court, his arm around her waist, her chestnut hair cascading like a crown. Ethan's blonde hair was slicked back, his green eyes glinting with practiced charm, but Jada saw the cracks, his tense jaw, the flicker of unease. Claire, radiant in a shimmering gown, smiled with the confidence of someone who believed she'd won. Margaret orbited them, her silver blonde hair impeccable, her icy blue eyes sweeping the room with regal disdain. Jada's pulse quickened, memories flooding back. Margaret's barbs at galas, calling her unsuitable, with a smile. Claire's knowing glances, as if she'd always been waiting in the wings. Ethan's silence, sharper than any insult. The pain surged, but Jada channeled it into steel. The string quartet paused, and Margaret ascended a small stage, her red lips parting as she raised a microphone. "Dear friends," she began, her voice smooth as velvet, "tonight we celebrate love reborn. Ethan and Claire, our perfect pair, step into a future bright with promise." Applause rippled, glasses raised. Ethan pulled Claire closer, her hazel eyes sparkling with victory. Jada moved then, her steps deliberate, weaving through the crowd like a shadow turning solid. Whispers followed. "Who is she?" But she ignored them, her heart a drumbeat as she climbed the stage's side, the folder clutched like a shield. Margaret's speech faltered as Jada approached, placing the documents beside a towering cake adorned with gold leaf. The room hushed, confusion etching faces. Ethan's smile froze, his green eyes widening in horror. Claire paled, her hand tightening on Ethan's arm. Margaret's lips parted, her voice a venomous hiss. "What is the meaning of this? You're not welcome here." Jada met her gaze, her warm brown eyes unwavering, her voice clear and resonant, cutting through the ballroom without need for a microphone. "I won't take long. To those who don't know me, I'm Jada Ellis, Ethan's wife. Still legally, despite your efforts to erase me." Gasps echoed, phones emerging from pockets. Ethan stepped forward, his face reddening. "Jada, leave now. This isn't the place." But she held up a hand unflinching. "This is exactly the place. You've celebrated while stealing my life." She opened the folder, pulling out the financial statement. "This proves you transferred our penthouse and savings to Margaret's name without my consent. Fraud, plain and simple." Murmurs swelled, guests shifting uncomfortably. "And this," she continued, holding up Nora's report, shows Ethan's firm funneling millions into the Warwick Legacy Fund, not as charity, but as a laundering scheme. Claire's family profited, tying them to a shady real estate deal with falsified loans. The room erupted in stunned whispers, cameras flashing, Margaret's face drained of color, her hand clutching the podium. "Lies!" she spat, but her voice trembled. Claire staggered back, her gown shimmering as her composure crumbled. "How did you—" she stammered, her hazel eyes wide with panic. Ethan lunged, his voice a desperate growl. "You're ruining everything." Jada wrenched free from his grasp, her stance unyielding. "No, you did. You took my home, my trust, my voice. Now I'm taking them back." She handed copies of the documents to a waiting associate from Victor's firm, a backup plan Nora had arranged. "Legal proceedings start tomorrow," Jada said, her voice steady as she descended the stage, the crowd parting like a sea. Behind her, chaos erupted, Ethan shouting denials, Margaret collapsing into a chair, Claire clutching her gown, tears streaking her face. Jada didn't look back. The night air greeted her like freedom as she stepped onto the street, the city's lights twinkling like stars aligned. Her heart raced, but her spirit soared. She was no longer the discarded wife. She was Jada Ellis, a force reborn, ready to reshape her destiny. The Detroit courthouse loomed like a fortress of justice, its stone walls cold and unyielding under the gray morning sky. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension, a sterile chamber where truth and lies collided. Jada Ellis sat at the plaintiff's table, her warm brown eyes steady, her long black hair tied in a low, elegant bun. The tailored navy suit, borrowed from Victor Lang's colleague, hugged her rich brown skin, lending her an air of quiet authority. Her mother's silver bracelet gleamed on her wrist, a talisman of the East Side resilience that had carried her through 2 years of rebuilding. The folder of evidence, financial statements, emails, Nora Tate's reports, lay before her, a testament to the betrayal she'd uncovered. Jada's heart pounded, a mix of nerves and resolve, as she faced the wreckage of her past. The gala confrontation had set the city ablaze with whispers, the Warwick name now synonymous with scandal. Jada's public exposure of Ethan's fraud and Claire's complicity had unleashed chaos, but today the courtroom was her battlefield. She glanced at Victor Lang, his salt and pepper hair neat, his gray eyes sharp with focus. He'd prepared her meticulously, drilling her on testimony, warning her of the Warwick's legal maneuvers. "They'll fight dirty," he'd said, his voice steady, "but we've got the truth." Jada clung to that, her resolve forged in the pain of Margaret's sneering words. "You were never the perfect daughter-in-law," and Ethan's silent betrayal. Across the room, Ethan Warwick entered, his blonde hair disheveled, his green eyes hollow from sleepless nights. The polished charm that once defined him was gone, replaced by a haggard man in a wrinkled suit. Margaret trailed him, her silver blonde hair dulled, her icy blue eyes blazing with fury beneath a veneer of composure. Claire was absent, her retreat to obscurity whispered about in tabloids, her engagement to Ethan dissolved in disgrace. Jada's chest tightened, memories flooding back. Margaret's condescending barbs at galas, calling her unsuitable for our legacy. Claire's smug glances, claiming Ethan as her own. Ethan's cowardice, letting her be cast aside. The pain was raw, but Jada channeled it into strength, her gaze unwavering as the judge took his seat. Victor rose, his voice cutting through the courtroom's hum. "Your Honor, we present evidence of marital fraud and misconduct by Ethan Warwick, aided by Margaret Warwick." He laid out the case with surgical precision, the financial statement showing the unauthorized transfer of the penthouse and savings to Margaret's name, emails plotting Jada's ousting, Nora's reports detailing Ethan's firm funneling millions into the Warwick Legacy Fund, a front for laundering tied to Claire's family. Each document was a brick in Jada's wall, built over 2 years of quiet resolve. The courtroom air thickened, spectators leaning forward, reporters scribbling furiously. Jada took the stand, her heart racing, but her voice steady. "I trusted Ethan with everything," she said, her warm brown eyes locking onto the judge. "I gave up my dreams to support him, but he and his mother stole our home, our savings, and tried to erase me." She recounted Margaret's prejudice, her voice trembling with controlled anger. She called me, not one of us, said my East Side roots made me unfit. They planned to replace me with Claire, who fit their image. The words poured out, each one a release of the shame she'd carried. The courtroom was silent, save for the scratch of pens and Margaret's sharp intake of breath. Ethan's lawyer, a slick man in a pinstripe suit, stammered defenses, marital discord, mutual agreements, but they crumbled under Victor's cross-examination. No consent was given for these transfers, Victor pressed, holding up the financial statement. This is fraud, plain and simple, compounded by laundering through a supposed charity. Margaret's face drained of color, her hands clutching her purse. Ethan slumped, his eyes avoiding Jada's. The judge's gavel fell like a blade. This court finds clear evidence of fraud and misconduct, he declared. Ms. Ellis is awarded half of all marital assets, including equity in the penthouse, plus temporary spousal support. Restraining orders on assets remain. Federal referrals for the Warwick Legacy Fund are approved. Jada's breath caught, a wave of vindication washing over her. The courtroom blurred, her eyes stinging with unshed tears, not of sorrow but of triumph tinged with bitterness. She'd won back her share, but the scars of betrayal lingered. Ethan's empire was fracturing, his firm suspending him amid the scandal. Margaret stormed out, her heels echoing defeat, only to face a swarm of reporters outside, their microphones thrust like spears. No comment, she snapped, but her voice shook, her social fortress crumbling. Jada left the courthouse with Victor at her side, Lila waiting outside with a fierce hug. You turned their world to dust, girl, Lila said, her green eyes gleaming. The victory was bittersweet, the weight of loss mingling with newfound strength. As they walked to the car, Detroit's skyline stretched before Jada, its towers no longer barriers but beacons of possibility. She wasn't just the discarded wife anymore. She was Jada Ellis, a woman forged in fire, her voice reclaimed, her future unwritten. The East Side's hum echoed in her heart, a reminder of the strength she'd always carried. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning. The East Side of Detroit pulsed with renewal, its streets lined with vibrant murals and budding community gardens, a testament to a neighborhood rising from its scars. Jada Ellis stood in the doorway of her new office, a modest space with exposed brick walls and large windows that let sunlight spill across the hardwood floor. Her warm brown eyes, once shadowed by betrayal, now gleamed with quiet pride, her long black hair tied in a low, elegant bun. The sign above the door read, Rise Again, a name that echoed her journey from the ashes of a shattered marriage. Her mother's silver bracelet glinted on her wrist, a relic of the East Side resilience that had carried her through. The settlement funds, half the penthouse's equity and spousal support, had seeded this dream, but it was Jada's fire that brought it to life. The courtroom victory had shifted the city's tides. Ethan Warwick faced federal scrutiny, his real estate empire crumbling under the weight of fraud allegations. Margaret, once the queen of Detroit's elite, had retreated into seclusion, her Warwick Legacy Fund gutted by audits and abandoned by donors. Claire had vanished, her name a footnote in tabloid gossip, her engagement to Ethan dissolved in disgrace. Jada felt no joy in their downfall, only closure. The scars of their betrayal, Margaret's sneering, "You were never the perfect daughter-in-law," Ethan's averted gaze, Claire's smug triumph, still lingered, but they no longer defined her. Each memory, once a wound, now fueled her purpose, a reminder of why she fought. Rise Again was more than an office. It was a sanctuary for women like Jada, silenced by betrayal and stripped of their voices. The space was simple: desks, filing cabinets, a cozy corner with plush chairs, and a kettle for herbal tea. But it hummed with possibility. Jada had envisioned it during late nights studying law, her heart stirred by stories of women at Lila's nonprofit, their struggles mirroring her own. The first client arrived days after the opening, a young mother from Hamtramck, her eyes hollow from years of financial control, clutching divorce papers like a lifeline. Jada listened, her own scars resonating. "I was you," she said softly, her voice steady with empathy. "They took everything, but I took it back. Here's how we start. Document everything." She connected the woman to Victor for pro bono filings, her hands steady as she handed over a referral card. Word spread, and the office buzzed with life. A Latina small business owner from Corktown, swindled in a marriage tied to her husband's debts, an elderly widow from Midtown, fighting for hidden assets. Jada became their guide, blending legal savvy from her paralegal certification with the empathy of someone who'd walked their path. Mornings began with case reviews over coffee, afternoons with workshops on financial literacy. "Your voice matters," she told each client, her brown eyes meeting theirs with unyielding warmth. "Second chance, third chance. It's yours to claim." The work was grueling, the emotional toll of reliving betrayal heavy. But each thank you note pinned to her wall was a victory, each hug from a client a step toward healing. Flashbacks crept in during quiet moments. Jada remembered the penthouse's empty halls, her footsteps echoing in solitude. Margaret's cutting remarks at galas, "So urban, dear," had once reduced her to a shadow. Ethan's cold dismissal in the kitchen, Claire's possessive smirk as she claimed him. Those memories no longer crippled, they were fuel. One evening, sorting files, Jada found a photo from her wedding day tucked in a drawer. She and Ethan smiled under a floral arch, her heart once full of hope. She traced his face, a pang of what if lingering, then set it aside. That life was gone. She was whole now, forged anew. Lila became her unofficial partner, her fiery red curls bouncing as she spread flyers at churches and spoke at shelters. "You're changing lives, Jada," Lila said over soul food at a local diner, plates of fried chicken and greens steaming between them. "Remember when you showed up at my door broken? Now you're a queen." Jada smiled, her heart swelling. "It's not just about me anymore," she said, her voice soft but firm. "These women, they're why I fought." A client, a teacher who'd reclaimed her home after uncovering her husband's fraud, sent a note. "You gave me my voice back." Jada framed it beside her desk, a beacon of purpose. Challenges arose, angry exes echoing the Warwicks, a smear campaign Ethan tried online, painting Jada as vindictive. Nora quashed it with counter-evidence, and public sympathy swung her way. Margaret's fall was complete, tabloids reporting her selling assets to cover legal fees. Jada felt only closure, her focus on the women she helped. One evening, a new client arrived, her story a mirror of Jada's, betrayed, replaced, fighting for scraps. Jada handed her resources, her voice steady. "We'll turn the tables," she promised. As they walked out, Detroit's skyline twinkled through the window, its lights a constellation of hope. Jada was no longer the overlooked wife. She was a beacon, her legacy rippling outward, healing others as she'd healed herself. And there it is, the story of Jada Ellis, who rose from betrayal's ashes to forge a legacy of empowerment. Her journey from a discarded wife to a beacon for others is a testament to resilience. What did Jada's story stir in you? Did it spark hope or remind you of someone fighting to reclaim their voice? Share your thoughts below, and if her tale moved you, rate it from 1 to 10. Your support fuels these stories. Thank you for joining me on this emotional ride. Hit subscribe, tap the bell, and let's meet again soon for more tales of strength and triumph. Until then, keep shining.